Vegas is loud on purpose. Bright lights, exaggerated costumes, familiar cliches stacked on top of each other like a theme park version of indulgence. When Pluribus drops us into Kumba's Las Vegas sequence, it initially feels like tonal whiplash. After hours of dread, surveillance, and philosophical terror, suddenly we're in a parody of a spy movie. Poker tables, eye patches, Elvis clones drifting through the background like decorative wallpaper. The instinctive reaction is to laugh, or at least to relax, and that reaction is exactly why the scene matters, because Vegas is not relief, it's camouflage. This isn't about whether Kumba is naive, selfish, or morally compromised. It's about why the Hive allows him to exist the way he does, why he is wrapped in luxury instead of confronted, why his indulgence is encouraged instead of corrected. The core theory is simple, but disturbing. The Hive is not persuading Kumba, it is positioning him. And once you rewatch the show with that assumption, nearly every indulgent moment turns into a containment measure. Kumba's Vegas environment is intentionally absurd. Nothing feels organic. Every element is exaggerated to the point of theatricality. That's not world building. It's set dressing. The poker game is the clearest example. The stakes are meaningless. The outcome is predetermined, not because the Hive rigs the cards, but because winning itself no longer has consequence. In a post-scarcity world, competition becomes performance. Kumba wins because winning flatters him, and the applause that follows is unsettling precisely because it isn't earned. The room reacts as though a script has reached its applause line. The villain removes his affectation. The masks drop. Everyone claps in unison. This is not celebration, it's confirmation. Kumba is the subject. Everyone else is infrastructure. Then Carol approaches Vegas, and the fantasy collapses instantly. No negotiation, no explanation, no transition. The Hive evacuates the environment like a fire drill. People vanish. The set is abandoned. Kumba is left alone in warm water and silence. That speed matters. It proves the entire scenario was provisional, switchable, disposable. Vegas was never a city. It was a mode. It's all controlled freedom, because freedom in Pluribus is rarely absolute. It is conditional, bounded, and revocable. Carol's freedom looks like isolation. Kumba's freedom looks like abundance, but both are managed. When we say Kumba is free, what we really mean is that he is unopposed. The Hive does not argue with him, it does not challenge him, it does not attempt to convince him through pressure. Instead, it removes friction, and that's critical distinction. Real freedom introduces resistance. Choices have consequences, and in Kumba's world, nothing pushes back. He is kind of allowed to want whatever he wants because wanting doesn't threaten the system. In fact, it stabilizes it. Then there's the question of why Kumba and not Carol. The show presents Carol and Kumba as philosophical opposites, but structurally they serve different functions for the Hive. Carol is unpredictable. She withholds consent. She questions motives and she digs. Kumba asks questions, but he pretty much accepts the answers. This difference is everything. The Hive doesn't fear curiosity, it fears resistance. Kumba represents a form of engagement that does not escalate. He participates without destabilizing the network. He absorbs explanations. He adapts. That makes him valuable, not because he agrees with the Hive, but because he's reachable. To understand the Hive's long game, we have to stop thinking about human moral framing. The Hive does not operate on empathy. It operates on compliance with internally consistent rules. The John Cena explanation sequence is essential here. The Hive claims it will not harm life. It will not kill. It will not even harvest food unless nature allows it. This sort of sounds compassionate until you realize it functions like a legal document. The prohibition is narrow, and everything outside it becomes permissible. That's how we get the freezer. Bodies processed industrially, death reclassified as supply, no violence committed, only resources reclaimed. The Hive isn't cruel, it is procedural, and that procedural mindset applies to the immune. Carol believes she is protected by refusal. The Hive confirms this belief. Assimilation requires a painful procedure. Pain is shared across the network. Forced pain violates the rules. Therefore, consent is required. It's true, and completely misleading, because the rule isn't don't assimilate without consent. The rule is don't cause pain without consent. Once the method changes, the rule no longer applies. The frozen eggs reveal is not a twist. It is a thesis statement. The Hive just doesn't abandon goals, it reroutes around obstacles. Now return to Vegas with this framework. If the Hive seeks a pain-free pathway to immune integration, what does it prioritize? Data, biological consistency, longitudinal sampling, and environments where collection does not register as intrusion. Kumba's lifestyle provides exactly that. No needles, no restraints, no confrontations, just proximity. A cage does not require bars. It requires boundaries you don't feel until you test them. Kumba's environment is generous, but it is not infinite. Every pleasure is provided, every path is smoothed, which means deviation becomes noticeable. Predictability increases, and predictability is harvestable. Then there's the emotional gravity. The Hive's most effective tool is not force, it is absence. When Carol is isolated long enough, she breaks. She paints messages on the road. She asks for contact. The Hive returns, not with authority, but with familiarity. Zosha, this is not kindness, it is calibration. Kumba never experiences this absence because he never needs to be broken. Another thing we need to discuss is information as exchange. One of the most quietly unsettling things about Kumba is how much he knows. Not because he's sneaking around, not because he's hacking anything or breaking rules, but because he's included. Kumba asks questions and the Hive answers him. That distinction matters. Carol interrogates. Kumba converses. The Hive responds to him with explainers, walkthroughs, even humor. It packages global horror into digestible narratives and hands them to him like content. And Kumba receives that information without flinching, without escalating, without threatening the system. From the Hive's perspective, this is ideal. Every question Kumba asks reveals something about him. Then we have the Kusamayu goat scene. That sequence isn't subtle, it's actually pretty precise. Everything about it is warm, familiar, and loving. The Hive surrounds Kusamayu with affirmation, care, and emotional safety. This is what acceptance looks like. This is what joining promises. And then she walks away. The baby goat cries out. We expect hesitation, guilt, a final look. We get none. That absence is the point. The Hive doesn't erase love, it outgrows it. Attachment becomes inefficient once it no longer serves the collective goal. What looks like betrayal from the outside feels like alignment from the inside. This scene retroactively reframes every indulgence Kumba receives. Because attention, affection, and pleasure don't guarantee protection, they guarantee proximity. Kumba's comfort doesn't mean he's valued as an individual. It means he's currently useful, and usefulness in Pluribus is never permanent. If this theory holds, Season 2 doesn't turn Kumba into a revolutionary. It turns him into a pattern recognizer. The shift is subtle. It's not rebellion, it's discomfort. Small moments where indulgence starts to feel repetitive. Where privacy starts to feel performative, where the same faces appear a little too often, smiling the same way, offering the same options. Nothing is wrong, and that's what makes it wrong. The Hive doesn't need to threaten Kumba, it only needs to keep him inside environments that reduce variance. Predictable movement, predictable habits, predictable outputs. And if Kumba ever tries to leave, the system doesn't react with force. It reacts with inconvenience, delays, detours, and polite obstacles that gently curve him back toward familiar ground. By the time he understands what's happening, escape no longer matters, because harvesting doesn't require confinement, it only requires access over time. The Hive does not want obedience, it wants stability. Happy people stabilize systems, satisfied people stop digging. Kumba is not being convinced, he is being optimized. And the most terrifying idea Pluribus presents is not domination, but comfort. Because a system that makes you happy can take everything you are without ever having to ask. Vegas wasn't a gift, it was an interface. And Kumba was never the guest, he was the sample.